Hey, so I wrapped up the install on your SaberForge Fallen Order hilt. Got it installed with a removable Proffie v3.9 chassis, along with two blue LED switches up here. So to access the internals, just unscrew the pommel. You'll notice that inside of the pommel, there's this kind of rim. So this serves to actually enclose the speaker. That way it vents all the sound all the way through the pommel without it leaking upwards of the hilt. So just set that off to the side. Make sure you cup over the opening of the hilts and just shake the chassis or shake the hilt a little bit to reveal this removable chassis. So now setting that off to the side. We have our Proffie v3.9. We have our 18650 battery back here. So just removing that. So the chassis is marked positive there for the positive side of the battery, negative there for the negative side. And then when you're inserting it, make sure you insert it negative side first, because the chassis does kind of have a lip there. It helps to hold the battery in a little bit tighter. Just snap that in place. Up here we have a connector, a 7-rail connector, that interfaces with the two switches, as well as the NeoPixel connector up there. Down here we have a 28mm bass speaker, and then hidden over here we have a kill switch. That way it cuts power from the board to the battery when you're not using it. Currently the kill switch is in the off position to the side. If you flip it to the right, it turns the saber or the chassis on. To the sides of the chassis I've also included two tactile switches. So these are actually mapped to basically the same signals as these two switches here. That way you can kind of operate the chassis without it needing to be in the saber. The one on the left, or in this orientation counterclockwise of the Proffie, is the main switch, and this one is the auxiliary switch. So let's slide this chassis in. Because this chassis connector is a radial design, it doesn't quite matter which orientation you put the chassis in as long as this connector goes in first. So just slide that in, and then once it's in, you want to screw the pommel all the way in to kind of lock that chassis in place. And it will lock it so that the chassis connector makes contact with the other side of the connector with the pogo pins. Just lock that in place. So currently I have it set so that the top switch is the main switch, bottom switch is the auxiliary, and the LEDs turn off when the saber is off, and turn on when the saber is on. So I actually have somewhat of a small control board in there to control these two LEDs. You can actually style these as basically like one NeoPixel connector in there, but it's always going to show a blue LED for both of them. That way you can at least have some sort of fading animation on the LEDs, the button LEDs themselves. And there we have our illuminated NeoPixel connector. And this hilt does take a 1-inch blade. So I have a 1-inch kind of test dagger blade here. Insert that. And the NeoPixel connector does have an extra pin that I designed to use, or that I designed for a blade detect. So it makes a sound when the blade makes contact with the saber, and makes another sound, a disengaging sound, when the blade is removed from the saber. Just compress the blade all the way in, tighten the retention screw up here. Just gonna somewhat tighten it, not all the way down. So currently on the saber I have some free fonts from Kyberphonic, so it's the Kyber's Workshop fonts.
purple, white, red.
And then back to the first font, which is the Battlefront font. So I'm going to be storing the currently loaded config for the Proffie onto the SD card, and I'll also be emailing it to you as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And as always, thank you so much for letting me work on this, and may the Force be with you.